This clip getting shown again, and it's just, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. It is completely unacceptable. Like, if a coach did this to any other player in the league, they'd be fired. Or they'd at least be questioned for them being fired.
It started with a single clip. One moment during a game. Caitlin Clark hyping the crowd after drilling a step-back three. And then, suddenly, a Fever coach grabs her arm and pulls her back. No warning. No context. Just a sudden, jarring gesture that lit up social media like wildfire. Within hours, fans were outraged. The question wasn't just, why did he grab her? It was deeper than that. It was, why are they trying to shut her down?
Caitlin Clark is there hyping up the crowd. She's there trying to hype up the crowd. Exactly what you want. Exactly what you want. You want to see this version of Caitlin. You want to see this player. And watch what happens here. So the coach just grabs her. Just grabs her.
This wasn't about one play or one game. This was about a pattern. A superstar slowly being muted. Her fire dimmed. Her swagger replaced with silence. The clip went viral not because of what it showed, but because of what it confirmed. The Indiana Fever might not just be struggling to win games. They might be trying to rewrite who Caitlin Clark is. And now, the world is watching.
And by the way, from this moment on, we hardly saw anything. From this moment on, the emotion was gone from Caitlin.
The footage didn't need sound to be deafening. In a packed arena, Caitlin Clark had just electrified the crowd with one of her signature moves, a deep step-back three that sent fans into a frenzy. She turned, full of fire, motioning to the crowd, pumping energy back into the building like only she can. And then, just like that, the mood shifted. As she walked off the court, a member of the Indiana Fever coaching staff reached out and grabbed her arm, not in celebration, not in a high five. Just a sudden, unexpected grip that pulled her momentum and her energy to a screeching halt. Within hours, the moment was everywhere. Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. Sports blogs picked it up. Fan pages exploded. The angles were shaky, the audio unclear, but the visuals told a story louder than words. Something was off. And the fans knew it. Some called it inappropriate. Others said it was flat-out disrespectful. And some just asked the question that hung over everything. Why would a coach grab a player, especially that player, like that in the middle of her most electric moment? This wasn't just any rookie. This was Caitlin Clark, the player who revitalized an entire fan base, brought sold-out crowds to the WNBA, and made Indiana Fever tickets some of the hottest in sports. This was the face of a movement, a cultural moment, a phenomenon in sneakers. And yet, in this crucial second, it looked like her own team was trying to reel her in like she was out of control, like she needed to be managed instead of celebrated. That clip exposed more than a physical gesture. It exposed a brewing disconnect between the identity fans see in Caitlin and the way her team seems to be handling her behind the scenes. It raised new suspicions and confirmed old ones that something or someone might be trying to reshape her in real time. The camera didn't capture words. We don't know what was said, but we saw her reaction. Gone was the fire. The emotion disappeared like a light switch. The crowd was still roaring, but Caitlin's face had gone blank. She didn't return to the floor. The game continued without her. And so did the questions. Because in that moment, it didn't feel like a substitution. It felt like a shutdown. A shutdown of momentum. A shutdown of emotion. A shutdown of who Caitlin Clark is when she's at her best. And fans noticed. The body language, the timing, the tension. It all told a bigger story. That single viral clip became a symbol. A flashpoint in a season already filled with confusion and frustration. And whether it was a misunderstanding or something more calculated, it shattered the illusion that everything behind the scenes was fine. Because if this is how they treat their star in public, what's happening when the cameras aren't rolling? Caitlin Clark has had her share of highs and lows this season, but this moment, this specific game, felt like a turning point. Not because of a loss or a game-winning shot, but because of what it revealed. For weeks, Fans had speculated that something strange was going on behind the scenes in Indiana, that her fire was fading, that her game didn't feel the same. And suddenly, there it was, caught on video. A coach grabbing her arm just after she reignited the crowd, as if to say, "That's enough." But why did this one moment hit so hard? Because Clark had just done everything fans begged to see from her. She was confident, loud, relentless. After hitting a step-back three over J.C. Sheldon, she didn't walk away quietly. She lit up the building. She was alive. You could see it in her face. That wasn't just another possession. That was a statement. The kind of moment that makes headlines, sells jerseys, and reminds the league why Caitlin Clark is unlike any other player in the game right now. And then, benched. Subbed out. Not in the heat of battle, not to manage minutes, but right at the peak of her performance. The Fever were up 20. The game was sealed. She wasn't needed on the floor anymore, or at least, that's what the box score would say. But to anyone watching, it looked like something else entirely. It looked like a choice to snuff out a spark before it could become a fire. Fans didn't miss the irony. After weeks of criticizing her for looking disengaged or emotionless, here she was, passionate and charged, only to be pulled from the game and yanked out of the moment. And not gently. That's what makes the viral footage sting even more. It wasn't just a substitution. It was a physical and emotional interruption. To viewers, it felt symbolic. She had finally broken through the tension, finally reclaimed her edge, and just as quickly, it was taken away. The timing wasn't just unfortunate, it was suspicious. Why pull her right then? Why kill the vibe when she was just coming alive? The game may have been over on the scoreboard, but something much bigger was happening beneath the surface. That grab didn't just halt her momentum. It confirmed the feeling that this team wasn't embracing the full Caitlin Clark experience. They were managing her, containing her, editing her in real time. Oh, hello. And when she sat down after that moment, the emotion didn't come back. Not for the rest of the game. Not in the post-game interviews. The fire was gone, and fans noticed. What could have been the start of her signature performance turned into a silent ending. That's why this moment felt different. It wasn't just a clip. It was a microcosm of everything wrong with how she's being handled. And fans knew it the second it happened. When Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA, everyone expected growing pains. Adjusting to pro speed, tougher defenses, and seasoned opponents is part of the rookie experience. But what no one expected, and what fans are now starting to suspect, is that the real challenge isn't coming from the other teams. It's coming from her own. Look closely at how her demeanor has changed over the season. At Iowa, Clark was a flamethrower, emotionally charged, talking trash, pushing tempo, and thriving on adrenaline. She fed off the crowd and used her emotion like fuel. She was the kind of player who got better the more pressure was thrown at her. But now, just weeks into her WNBA career, that electricity is fizzling out. The joy, the swagger, the fire, all dimmed. And fans are beginning to ask, is the Indiana Fever trying to break her spirit? That may sound extreme, but the signs are everywhere. Interviews where Clark seems cautious, almost scripted. Body language during games that feels flat, even when she plays well. Game plans that seem to limit her playmaking, not unleash it. And now, physical interference when she dares to show emotion. People aren't imagining this shift. It's real. The same player who once slapped the floor on defense and screamed after every dagger three, now walks quietly back to the bench after a big play. And the viral clip of her being grabbed mid-celebration didn't start this suspicion. It confirmed it. There's a fine line between coaching and control, and the Fever seem to be crossing it. Instead of elevating her strengths, it feels like they're trying to sand down her edges. Make her quieter, more polished, easier to manage. But Caitlin Clark isn't supposed to be easy to manage. That's the whole point. That's what makes her magnetic. And let's be clear. No one is saying she's above coaching. Every player, no matter how talented, needs guidance and structure. But this isn't about discipline or strategy. It's about identity. It's about stripping away the very qualities that made her the most exciting prospect women's basketball has ever seen. Batter in Chikama. The strangest part? It's not like she's failing. Clark has shown flashes of brilliance. She's making plays, hitting shots, adjusting fast. But every time she starts to look like herself, something pulls her back. A timeout, a substitution, or now, a physical grab. It's like the team is more concerned with keeping her in a box than letting her evolve. Delahaye. Fans didn't fall in love with a polished product. They fell in love with the raw, emotional, unpredictable force that Caitlin Clark embodied. And now they're watching her be reshaped. Not by the league, but by the very franchise that should be celebrating her. This doesn't feel like development. It feels like suppression. And the more it happens, the more people are wondering, is this really about basketball? Or is someone behind the scenes trying to rebrand a star who was already shining too bright? There's a growing sense among fans that Caitlin Clark is being penalized for the very thing that made her a phenomenon, her passion. Not poor sportsmanship, not technical fouls, not disrespect, just raw emotion, energy, fire. The kind that ignites crowds, rattles opponents, and elevates a game from good to unforgettable. And the most absurd example of this? When officials threaten to give her a technical foul for hyping up the crowd, let that sink in. A player hits a deep three, turns to the fans, throws her arms up in the air, and the refs warn her for showing too much enthusiasm. If that happened in an NBA game, the arena would explode in outrage. But here, in the WNBA, it was treated as a violation. As if joy had a limit. As if celebrating your own greatness was somehow crossing a line. To many, it felt like a warning shot, not just from the officials, but from the culture surrounding Clark. A culture that seems to be saying, tone it down, don't be too loud, don't be too bold. But why? Why is her fire being seen as a problem instead of a gift? Basketball thrives on emotion. The greatest players, from Michael Jordan to Allen Iverson to Diana Taurasi, all played with an edge. They talked, they celebrated, they dared opponents to stop them. That's what fans pay to see. And Caitlin Clark brings that same energy. She's not just a shooter or a passer, she's a show. And the WNBA desperately needs that kind of electricity. Yet every time she steps into her role as a leader and an entertainer, there seems to be pushback. Whether it's from refs, coaches, or the league itself, there's a pattern emerging. Caitlin is allowed to play, but only within certain boundaries. Smile, shoot deep, sell tickets. But don't get too fiery. Don't act like you run this. The problem is, she does run this. Or at least, she should. She's the most talked about player in the sport right now. And the idea that she should suppress her natural instincts to fit into some outdated model of acceptable behavior isn't just wrong, it's self-defeating. It's a missed opportunity to evolve the league. Fans didn't show up in record numbers to watch a muted version of Caitlin Clark. They came to see the storm, the energy, the trash talk, the adrenaline. And every time she's warned for expressing that, it chips away at what makes her special. If you punish a player for being passionate, eventually that passion dies. And when that happens, you don't just lose a moment, you lose the magic. You lose the spark that turns games into memories. So when refs threaten a tech for celebration or coaches silence emotion with a grab, it's not just a rule being enforced, it's a message being sent. And the message is clear. Passion has limits here. But what happens when the player you're trying to contain is the passion itself? It's easy to point fingers at the coaching staff when something goes wrong on the court. But the more you examine what's happening with Caitlin Clark, the clearer it becomes. This goes deeper than play calls and substitutions. The strange choices, the emotional suppression, the image control, they all point towards something much bigger. This might not just be a coaching decision. This might be coming from the top. Let's start with the front office. Herb Simon, the longtime owner of the Indiana Fever, has a reputation for running a tight ship. Then there's Kelly Krauskopf, the general manager and former president of the franchise. Add to that names like Amber Cox and the rest of the Fever's executive team. These aren't just people organizing flights and salaries. These are decision makers shaping the long-term brand of the team. And right now, it seems like that brand involves turning Caitlin Clark into something she's not. Nakuman, the idea of controlling an athlete's public image isn't new. But rarely has it felt this visible, this forced. Clark's game is fiery, gritty, and unapologetic. She's the type of player who feeds off conflict. The deeper the pressure, the better she performs. But lately, she's looked restrained, almost filtered. Not just in her play, but in her interviews, her on-court behavior, and her overall demeanor. Plus, that's not a coincidence. That's a campaign. There's a theory among fans that the Fever are trying to mold Caitlyn into a market-friendly icon. Someone squeaky clean, always smiling, never too loud. A logo, not a leader. And maybe they think that's what sponsors want. Maybe they think a polished Caitlyn will sell more merchandise or avoid controversy. But here's the truth. Fans didn't fall in love with the logo. They fell in love with the edge. Look at how the media handled her in college. She was never afraid to show emotion, to clap in opponents' faces, to talk back, to stand her ground. And the result? She became the most watched player in women's college basketball history. That rawness was her brand. But now it's being sanitized. Not to protect her, but to protect the system that wants her contained. It's not just a misstep. It's a misunderstanding of what this moment means. Caitlyn Clark didn't arrive in the WNBA to play a role. She arrived to rewrite the script, to bring a new audience, to challenge the old guard. But instead of embracing that, it looks like the Fever are trying to clip her wings before she ever truly takes flight. Puckless. Fans see it. They feel the shift. The emotion that once poured out of her now feels measured. The explosiveness that made her must-watch TV is being trimmed into palatable sound bites. And the viral footage of her being grabbed? That wasn't just physical control, it was symbolic. It was the hand of an institution saying, "Stay in line." But the question everyone's asking now is, how long can she stay in line before something breaks? Or before she decides to break free? To understand why fans are outraged by the way Caitlyn Clark is being handled, you have to understand who she really is. Not the media creation, not the sanitized version, but the real Caitlyn. And here's the truth, she's no angel. She never was. And that's exactly why she's beloved. Sure, Clark plays with an edge, she flops, she shoves, she taunts, she stares down defenders. She claps in opponents' faces and lets the crowd know when she's taking over. She talks trash like a veteran and celebrates like she owns the building, because on most nights, she does. And fans eat it up, not despite her attitude, but because of it. That chip on her shoulder, that's the fuel. That's what makes her unstoppable. Non-poor. So when the Fever or the WNBA try to wrap her in bubble wrap, when they try to mold her into a humble, smiling, quiet superstar who plays safe and says all the right things, they're not just changing her behavior. They're stripping her of her core identity. She doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, she's better when she's not. She's not trying to be everyone's friend on the court. She's trying to destroy you. That's what Kobe had, that's what Jordan had. That refusal to tone it down. That refusal to apologize for being better. It's not just part of the game. It is the game. And Caitlyn has it. But lately, that fire feels muffled. She still hits the shots. She still delivers passes that make highlight reels. But the edge? The raw emotion? The unfiltered confidence that made her the most polarizing and magnetic player in basketball? It's not showing up the same way. Because every time she starts to express it, whether it's a celebration or a glare, someone steps in to reel her back. And that brings us back to the viral moment. That grab. That split-second shutdown. It wasn't just about physical contact, it was about control. It was a message that said, stay within the lines, don't be too much. But Caitlyn Clark has always been too much. And that's exactly why she's a generational talent. The WNBA is in a moment of transformation, and Caitlyn is the epicenter. She's drawing in new fans, breaking records, and giving the league the kind of national attention it's never had before. But with that spotlight comes discomfort, especially for those who prefer the game the way it used to be. Controlled, predictable, safe. Caitlyn Clark is none of those things. She's emotional. She's intense. She's fearless. And if you try to turn that kind of player into a people pleaser, you don't get a better version of her. You get a broken version. The real Caitlyn Clark isn't a saint. She's a storm. And the moment you try to tame a storm, you lose everything that made it powerful in the first place. If anyone truly understood Caitlyn Clark, it was Lisa Blutter. During her time at Iowa, Coach Blutter didn't just tolerate Caitlin's edge. She embraced it. She didn't try to mold her into someone more polite, more quiet, or more reserved. She let Caitlin be Caitlin, flaws and all. And the result? Magic. Under Blutter's leadership, Clark became the most electric player in college basketball. She didn't just put up numbers, she dominated headlines. She was allowed to talk trash, scream after big shots, and wear her emotions like a badge. She wasn't coached into silence. She was coached into ownership of her game, her team, and her identity. Blutter knew how to walk the line. She never denied that Caitlin could be intense, even difficult at times. But instead of suppressing that intensity, she taught Clark how to channel it. She understood that players like Caitlin don't thrive under restriction. They thrive under direction. Not control. Not censorship. Direction. And it worked. Clark led her team to a national title game. She broke records, drew massive TV audiences, and sparked debates across the sports world. People loved her or hated her, but they felt something. That's what Blutter nurtured, the full force of Caitlin's personality, sharpened into something powerful. Compare that to what's happening now with the Indiana Fever. Instead of guiding her energy, they seem determined to suppress it. Instead of letting her lead, they keep trying to contain her, substituting her after a momentum-swinging play, grabbing her arm when she celebrates, warning her for getting the crowd involved. It's a pattern, and it's not working. Blutter's approach proved that Clark's fire doesn't need to be extinguished. It needs to be focused. And when it is, she's nearly unstoppable. She becomes the type of player who can rally a team, electrify a crowd, and turn a regular season game into a must-watch event. That's not a liability, that's leadership. The problem is, the Fever don't seem to want that kind of leadership from her. At least not yet. Maybe they're afraid of ruffling feathers. Maybe they don't want a rookie taking too much control. Or maybe they're just stuck in a system that values order more than originality. Whatever the reason, it's clear they're ignoring the Blutter blueprint. And fans are starting to see the difference. At Iowa, Clark was unfiltered and dominant. With the Fever, she's been quieter, more hesitant, more subdued. That's not growth. That's erasure. Blutter's legacy with Clark wasn't just about wins. It was about trust. She trusted Clark to be herself and to grow into her own kind of greatness. That kind of trust can't be replaced with PR coaching or image management. It comes from understanding that some players don't need to be changed. They just need to be believed in. Het what kind of beleidnis. And right now, it feels like the Indiana Fever still haven't figured that out. There's a dangerous transformation happening in plain sight. Caitlin Clark, the most dynamic rookie the WNBA has ever seen, is slowly being reduced from a fearless floor general into something far less inspiring, a marketing mascot. She's still on the court, she's still wearing the jersey. But the way she's being used, it doesn't feel like she's leading this team, it feels like she's being paraded. The Indiana Fever didn't draft Clark just to stand in the corner and hit long threes. They drafted her because she was a generational leader, someone who could change not just the score, but the culture. She was the engine, the communicator, the pulse of every possession. But watch closely now, and you'll see her reduced to highlight moments. A flashy shot here, a deep three there. Cut to commercial. Sell a few jerseys. Move on. Wait, that's not who she is. That's not who fans showed up for. Wait, you can feel the frustration growing. Every time she's benched, after gaining momentum. Every time she's micromanaged, during a post-game interview. Every time her leadership is undermined by hesitation, cautious play calls, or moments like the now infamous viral grab. Fans aren't just annoyed, they're insulted, because they know what they're watching isn't the full Caitlin Clark experience. The league and the team seem to want the idea of Caitlin, the smiling superstar, the safe face of women's basketball, without embracing the reality of Caitlin, competitive, emotional, opinionated, and unpredictable. The kind of player who can take over a game or a locker room in a matter of seconds. That's messy. That's risky. But it's real. And it's why fans are here. Right now, it feels like the Fever are trying to package her as a product instead of empowering her as a player. And in doing so, they're losing the very magic that made her a phenomenon in the first place. Man up. You don't need to silence Caitlin Clark to make her marketable. She's already marketable. She was breaking NIL records in college long before she ever stepped into a professional arena. Fans didn't come for the polish. They came for the pulse, the edge, the emotion that spilled out in every play. The way she made every possession feel personal. And the consequences of this mishandling are stacking up. The games feel flatter, the energy feels off. The fan reactions are louder and more bitter. Because people can tell when something authentic is being watered down. And they didn't fall in love with Caitlin Clark because she was perfect. They fell in love because she was real, flawed, fierce, and fearless. And watching her be reshaped into a quiet brand ambassador instead of a leading force is not just disappointing, it's enraging. If the Fever keep treating her like a marketing tool instead of a leader, they'll not only lose her, they'll lose the fans who came with her. And the worst part is, they might not even realize it until it's already too late. What started as one viral clip has become a symbol of something much bigger. Caitlin Clark isn't just another rookie, she's a once-in-a-generation force. But instead of fueling that fire, the Indiana Fever seem determined to control it. From emotional suppression to strange substitutions and overmanagement, the signs are all there. They're not just coaching her, they're reshaping her. And in doing so, they're stripping away what made her electric in the first place. Fans didn't fall in love with a quiet role player. They fell in love with the fire, the attitude, the passion that turned games into events. If the Fever keep forcing her to shrink into a market-friendly version of herself, they won't just lose momentum, they'll lose the very soul of their team. Because Caitlin Clark was never meant to be tamed. She was meant to take over. And the world is watching. They